Welcome to the Explainer. We're jumping right in today because we are exploring a structure that you absolutely already recognize. But its true origins? Well, they're rooted in a deeply personal, human tragedy. We're looking at the making of the Taj Mahal. And trust me, this isn't just a story about stacking stones or ancient architecture. It is the incredible tale of a technical marvel born from absolute world-shattering heartbreak.
Okay, let's dive into this. How does unimaginable grief actually build a world wonder? I really want you to keep this in the back of your mind as we go through this explainer together. You see, we often look at monumental architecture and think only about the engineering, the math, the materials, right? But we have to consider the human catalyst behind the stone. What drives a person to command such an undertaking? Well, to understand the answer, we have to travel back in time and look at the man who started it all.
Picture the 17th century Mughal Empire. This was, by all accounts, a literal golden age. Under the 5th Mughal emperor Shah Jahan, the empire was practically invincible. We are talking about a macro-level view of staggering wealth, flourishing trade routes bringing in silk from China and precious gems from distant lands, and just monumental ambition. Shah Jahan had infinite resources at his fingertips. His capital was the epicenter of this vibrant world of scholars, poets, and artists. But amid all this supreme power and unimaginable wealth, there was one person he treasured above all else, his queen, Mumtaz Mahal.
Which brings us to a truly devastating contrast. On one side, you have ultimate imperial power, and on the other, ultimate helplessness. In 1631, despite being pregnant with their 14th child, Mumtaz Mahal accompanied Shah Jahan on a military campaign to the Deccan region. Tragically, on June 17, 1631, in the city of Burhanpur, she suffered severe complications during childbirth. And the heartbreaking reality was that no amount of imperial wealth, power, or physicians could save her. Her death completely shattered the mighty emperor. Witnesses actually noted that he withdrew from public life for months. His hair reportedly turned gray, and all music and celebration across the entire empire instantly ceased.
He desperately needed an outlet for this profound grief. So, he decided to build a monument symbolizing eternal love, divine beauty, and the glory of paradise. He transitioned from this quiet, overwhelming mourning to conceiving a massive heavenly vision. He chose a very specific spot on the banks of the sacred Yamuna River in Agra. Now, why Agra? Well, it was a major capital. The river allowed for transport of incredibly heavy materials. It created these breathtaking reflections. And crucially, it allowed the mausoleum to be visible right from the imperial palace. He wanted to look out his window across the water and literally see heaven on earth, dedicated to his queen. But to build heaven on earth, you're going to need a serious workforce. 20,000. That is the massive scale of the workforce assembled for this project. Think about the logistics of that for a second. This wasn't just a construction crew. A bustling, temporary city emerged around the site just to build this dream. They needed housing, massive kitchens, administrative offices, workshops. An entire community of thousands was born with one single unified purpose. And who exactly were these 20,000 people? Well, they brought in master architects from Persia, brilliant stonecutters from India, structural engineers, Islamic calligraphers, Central Asian designers, and precious jewelers. This was an absolutely unprecedented fusion of artistic traditions. Brilliant minds like the chief designer Ustad Ahmad Lahori were brought together to harmonize Persian geometry, Indian craftsmanship, and Central Asian design into one completely unified masterpiece. It was like a 17th century architectural all-star team.
Now, what's really interesting about this is how they solved a massive hidden engineering challenge. You see, the soft mud on the banks of the Yamuna River is a terrible place to build a massive heavy stone structure. It's incredibly unstable. So first, engineers dug enormous wells deep into that soft riverbank soil. Step 2, they filled those wells with stone and timber to act as gigantic supportive pillars. And finally, step 3, they constructed an immense elevated marble platform right on top of it. This micro-level solution was absolutely genius. It created a secure base that protected the structure from flooding and provided a grand elevation that has lasted for centuries.
Once that massive platform was secure, they needed materials to build upon it. And not just any materials. The defining brilliant white marble came from Makrana, India, which is hundreds of kilometers away. But Shah Jahan, he wanted the treasures of the entire world. We're talking jade from China, lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, sapphire from Sri Lanka, and turquoise from Tibet. Getting all this here required a monumental logistical network. I mean, they had to build special, improved roads and use thousands of oxen, carts, and elephants carrying these heavy stones across incredibly difficult terrain
all the way to this single spot in Agra. When it came time to build the famous central dome, the engineers faced a major aesthetic and structural dilemma. If you build a dome that looks towering and magnificent from the outside, it's going to create a cavernous, dark, and totally disproportionate room on the inside. So their brilliant solution? The double dome design. The inner dome was perfectly engineered to create a majestic, proportionate interior chamber for the tombs. Meanwhile, the outer dome was engineered purely to produce that towering, iconic external silhouette that completely transformed the Agra skyline.
And this brilliantly illustrates the hidden genius of Mughal engineering. Take a moment to consider the minarets. These are the four slender towers framing the platform. Visually, they look like a purely aesthetic and spiritual feature, right? Drawing the eye upward toward heaven and beautifully framing the mausoleum. But they have a secret. They were actually ingeniously built with a slight outward inclination. Why? Because in the event of a massive earthquake, these towers are designed to fall outward, away from the central tomb, rather than crushing it. They literally turned a beautiful architectural feature into a protective shield. No way they were taking any chances with Mumtaz's resting place.
Now let's zoom in a bit from those massive domes and towers down to the incredible micro details of the artistry. Take pietra dura, which is known locally as parch and curry. This is an exquisite decorative technique where craftsmen carved tiny, delicate cavities into the hard marble walls and then inserted precisely shaped, completely seamless precious gemstones to form incredibly lifelike flowers, vines, and geometric patterns. I mean, just imagine the relentless, unforgiving precision this took. A single mistake could ruin weeks of work. Just one decorative panel of these precious minerals could take months of agonizingly detailed labor to complete.
That obsession with absolute perfection didn't stop at the stonework, it extended to the writing on the walls too. The renowned calligrapher Amanat Khan Shirazi designed verses from the Quran to decorate the monument. But he threw in a highly sophisticated optical illusion. As you read the inscriptions, the letters actually increase in size the higher they go up the structure. The result? When a visitor stands on the ground and looks up, the text appears perfectly uniform and balanced, despite the height. It's just an extraordinary piece of artistic sophistication welcoming visitors into a symbolic representation of paradise. Let's move to and see how this builds across time. In 1631, Mumtaz Mahal dies, and that unbelievable grief sparks the vision. By 1653, after 22 years of continuous, grueling labor by an entire generation of workers, the construction of the masterpiece finally concludes. The emperor's dream is a reality. But look at 1658. Talk about a tragic twist of fortune. Shah Jahan is actually overthrown and imprisoned by his own son, Aurangzeb. His architectural triumph was quickly followed by a brutal loss of political power, culminating in his death in 1666 when his body was carried to the Taj Mahal and he was finally, at long last, laid to rest beside his beloved Mumtaz. So the crucial point is this. Imprisoned in Agra Fort, an aging, deposed emperor spent his final years simply gazing across the river at the magnificent tomb he built for his beloved queen. It is a powerful macro-level irony. He had the invincible wealth and power to gather the greatest minds and materials on Earth to build the greatest monument in human history, but all that wealth and power couldn't protect him from betrayal within his own family. In the end, the Taj Mahal remained his only constant connection to the absolute love of his life.
Which leaves us with this final, pretty provocative thought. When you look at the greatest buildings in the world today, what powerful human emotions originally inspired them? The story of the Taj Mahal is the ultimate proof that extreme sorrow can drive humanity to create timeless, world-changing beauty. It stands today not just as a marvel of engineering, but as a monument born from grief that became a universal symbol of love. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really encourage you to look a little closer the next time you see a photograph of a world wonder. You might just find a very human heartbeat hidden deep within the stone.